All right, welcome. So this video is alignment over comfort. The focus of this video is to cover the idea that alignment with your goals, with your best self, with God, that is going to be the best way to live your life versus the lie that comfort presents of pleasure and enjoyment in the moment, even though that pleasure and enjoyment comes at a cost later on in life, right? So the idea is that alignment itself is actually more fruitful, more valuable, more important, more impactful on your life than comfort for an obvious reason, because when you are aligned with where you want to go, you will feel more fulfilled, you will feel more bliss, but it may take some time to actually adjust and integrate to that lifestyle, which is why there's a delay in the actual enjoyment, right? Whereas comfort, when you're comfortable, you are feeling good now, right? You're giving yourself the ability to feel good now, but you are choosing to align with a lifestyle that is not going to yield very much results later on. So comfort and pleasure is really a lie, right? Because when we feel comfortable, right, when we choose pleasure and enjoyment now over the work and the effort that would get us the results that we seek over the long term, or in the long run rather, that comfort and that enjoyment, yes, it is enjoyable now, but it is a very fleeting feeling of enjoyment, very fleeting feeling of pleasure, and most of the time it doesn't even feel as enjoyable as we expect it to, right? But once that pleasure and enjoyment is gone, we are left feeling worse than we were before we started the activity. Think about porn as an example, or I'll say PMO. When you engage in that activity, normally you feel better before than you do after, right? But you have this anticipation of pleasure and enjoyment that brings you to doing it. But then after the fact, you feel significantly worse, right? So this is an example where by not doing it, right, by just keeping ourselves aligned with our values, with our goals, let's say we work on our business, or we read a book, or we go out on a walk as an alternative to engaging in PMO, we actually feel better over the long term. We feel better as time goes on than we would if we were going to engage in PMO. So when you engage in these activities, PMO is one, smoking weed, let's say eating junk food, eating food that is not good for you, for your body, right? Eating poison. When you do these things, even though it feels good in the moment, sometimes it doesn't actually feel as good as you want it to. And the costs of it are not even worth the enjoyment most of the time when you look at it. When you think of a habit like PMO, the enjoyment that comes from PMO is not worth the cost of not being able to have real sex because you develop ED, or simply just feeling worse, not having energy, feeling lesser within yourself than you would if you were staying disciplined, if you were working on yourself, if you were building yourself, having real goals, right? Reading books, exercising, doing things that are actually going to get you on the path rather than engaging in these lower vibrational habits. So the reality is alignment itself actually makes you feel better in the long term. You get a slower onset of the pleasure and the bliss and the enjoyment that comes from living an aligned life, living your life in alignment with your goals, with your true purpose, and with the version of yourself that you're trying to become. It's a slower onset. As time goes on, the enjoyment you experience increases exponentially. So it may be slow at first, right? It may be difficult to start in the gym. It may be difficult to start waking up early. But because those things are aligned with you living your best life or being your best self, eventually you will receive the onset effects of more enjoyment throughout all of your day, throughout all of your activities, rather than just within these fleeting moments of pleasure and enjoyment that we seek through instant gratification habits. But at a certain point, when we continue to engage in the good habits, and the same thing happens in the bad habits, but in the opposite effect, right? The longer we engage in these good habits, the more that enjoyment curve increases, and eventually it becomes exponential, and it starts to grow very rapidly. And we get to a point where we're feeling more bliss than we ever thought possible, because the slow effect of the first 3 months, the first 6 months of really working on it and really grinding and working on yourself and developing yourself, those first 3 to 6 months can be very, very difficult, right? And it doesn't feel like it's yielding as much results as you'd like it to. But as you pass the 6 month mark and start to reach your first year, your first 2 years, your first 3 years of really focusing on and developing your skills, your mindset, your knowledge, your fitness, your business, you'll start to really feel the results of this, the real effects of becoming this best self, this better version of you. And once you get to that point, there's really no question whether or not it was worth it, because things like PMO, things like smoking weed all day, things like eating junk food, they're not worth it in the end, right? They're not worth it. By the time you're done doing it, you get to the next day, you feel like shit, right? You basically have to do it all over again just to feel good. And it's the opposite effect here, whereas you don't have to do much, but you can feel very blissful, very high energy, very stimulated, because you are in a state where your dopamine is healthy, your body is healthy, your brain is healthy, and you're happy and satisfied with where you are in life. So it's natural to feel in a higher emotional state than it would be when your life is shit and you're chasing it through this comfort and this instant gratification. So you should live your life focused on alignment with your purpose and alignment with your goals, not comfort, not easy gratification and easy satisfaction, but real, genuine alignment with your goals and your true purpose, and alignment with God. If we get into spirituality, it doesn't really matter what you believe in as far as God. As long as you believe in a God and as long as you follow and align with those values that make you able to be more connected spiritually, be more aware spiritually, so that you can understand and know your true purpose, which by extension means that it's easier to align with it, right? So once you know and you understand and you can perceive your true purpose in life, then you can align fully with it and you can continue to progress rapidly. Because the thing is, every time you choose comfort, every time you choose to sleep in, every time you choose to not eat the right food, let's say you eat out instead of cooking at home, right? Every time you choose one of the wrong habits over an aligned habit, you are essentially choosing to align yourself with a lower lifestyle, a lower frequency, right? Let's say you go to Chipotle instead of cooking the same rice bowl at home. You're consuming a bunch of seed oils, you're consuming a bunch of unknown meat products. At this point, we have genetically modified meat in a lot of grocery stores and a lot of fast food chains. So you're consuming a lot of bullshit that you don't need to be consuming when you could eat the same meal but at home. And so every time you make one of these small decisions, that determines what you're aligned with, right? So regardless, you're aligned with something, right? No matter what choice you make, you're aligning yourself with something, right? Some outcome. What that outcome is based on what you're aligning yourself with, what your focus is, right? Where your mind is at. What are you concentrating your attention and your energy onto? And when you align yourself with the right habits, let's say, for example, you start waking up early and you get on top of a morning routine, the rest of your day, you'll feel way better. You'll have way more energy and you'll feel way more awake and alive. But for the first 30 minutes to an hour, you might feel really exhausted. You might feel like shit. It might be really difficult to get yourself out of bed and into a flow state, but it's going to yield the result of having the rest of the day with more energy, versus when you choose to sleep in, you're choosing comfort in that moment. You're choosing to sleep in thinking, okay, I'm going to sleep longer. I'm going to feel a little better though because I'll have better sleep. But in reality, your sleep doesn't actually get much better when you sleep an extra 3 hours in the morning. Your sleep will only get better if you make sure you are taking your magnesium, you live an active lifestyle, you are actually getting your energy out with, exercise and working, and making sure you're going to sleep earlier. Those are the things that'll increase your sleep quality and therefore how good you feel. Sleeping an extra few hours after your alarm, or skipping your alarm and going back to bed, or just not setting an alarm altogether and just sleeping until whenever, this is going to actually take away from the energy you have for the rest of the day. We can get into, how sleep cycles work and how the circadian rhythm works, but basically when you do go back to sleep, it's not actually giving you extra energy for the day. It's really just going to make you feel more groggy when you do wake up. So the choice you make here determines the rest of your day without you even really realizing it, right? Because you may think to yourself sleeping in is going to allow you to get extra time in bed, which is going to mean you're going to have more energy and feel better throughout the rest of the day. But that's actually not true. That's not accurate, right? We need to be waking up and going to bed at a specific time to regulate our circadian rhythm, which will determine how much energy we have and at what points during the day. So, with a dysregulated circadian rhythm, you may experience being more awake at night and, sleepy in the morning, sleepy during the day, and you feel groggy early in the morning or throughout the day. And then you get the spike of energy close to the end of the day. This is just because your circadian rhythm is out of whack. It's used to an off sleep cycle. But you can fix this by simply going to sleep earlier and waking up earlier and doing it consistently enough that your circadian rhythm can regulate. And combining this with getting sunlight early in the morning will get you to a stable circadian rhythm, which will mean that you can actually get better sleep when you do sleep and you can have more energy during the day. So, making the choice to wake up early, even though it is difficult, will make the rest of your day easier. It will make it flow better. You'll have more time available. And the best sleep quality we can get is earlier at night, not later in the morning. You could pull examples across multiple different areas of life. The gym, for example, we could choose to stay on the couch, smoke weed, and watch TV all day, or we can go get in the gym. We can be eating healthy. And even though it may require more effort to go to the gym, may require more effort to buy food from the grocery store and cook it at home than to just get something when we're out. But the effort put in will yield more energy, better fitness, better brain health. We'll be able to think more clearly. So those positives are something that comes out of living in alignment, being aligned with your true goal, being aligned with your true purpose. Whereas choosing the easy and comfortable option doesn't actually benefit us in the long run. So it really causes more pain, more discomfort, more dissatisfaction. All right, a little bonus piece of information on this topic regarding alignment over comfort. The important thing to focus on and think about is that comfort itself, right? How you feel is not what you should be listening to. I've kind of been going throughout my day since I previously finished recording, and I've been thinking about this topic some, and brought me to this thought and this idea that what you should focus on is not what you feel. You shouldn't be focusing on how you feel about things. Don't focus on your emotions. Don't focus on what something is going to make you feel like in the moment. Focus on how aligned it is with your true goals, your true purpose, and the person that you want to become in the end, right? So not what feels good now, how do I feel about it now, right? The discomfort of waking up in the morning, right? Don't think about how you're going to feel in the morning. Think about aligning with the person who's waking up early, who's being productive, who's active throughout the day, rather than listening to your feelings and your desire for comfort when it comes to deciding on what actions you should be taking. So this is all I have for this video. This is my first raw thoughts in a while, so I hope you guys did enjoy. You can leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll leave my Instagram and my TikTok linked down below if you guys do enjoy short form content. You can check those out. But other than that, that is all from me, and I'm out of here. Peace.